the first 3 years when you're unhappy, you're like, I'm new at this. This is the hardest job in the world. That's normal. But as you start to get better at things and it still feels that same kind of hard, for me, I lost hope because I thought this is going to be the time. And then, of course, I gave myself 2 more years. Oh, when I hit 5 years, then it's going to be easy. And yeah, it got easier and better, but I still felt horrible. And then finally, I had to kind of face the music that wasn't the right career for me. And my husband basically said to me, sort it out. You can't come home crying every day from work. You can't wake up at 2 a.m. every night. If you don't sort it out, our marriage is not going to last. I don't care what you have to do it because we can sell our house. You need to figure out a way to be happy in life. And I always joke that the ultimatum was really permission. So ultimately I had to kind of begin the path and figure out, all right, what am I going to be? What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Because this isn't working for me.
And from your experience, which portion of it, if you don't mind going in a little bit more details, which portion of doing dentistry and practicing as a dentist was tiring you off most?
I think for me, it was, and by the way, I'm a pretty open book, as you probably know from my telling you about my rebirth day. So for me, it was the relationship with patients. And I went into dentistry because I really liked people, but I found that I guess I didn't know myself as much as I thought I did. And I was a big people pleaser. And that what I find is that people who are more burnt out or unhappier with dentistry, we are people pleasers and we want to do anything to make our patients win, to make our team happy, and we will sacrifice ourselves for it. And it just takes such a huge toll. So I just always felt like it was the world, the weight of the world on my shoulders to be the hero for everyone and fix everyone and make it perfect for them. And dentistry isn't like that. It's not a textbook. It's so variable and nature is unpredictable. And so when you have that expectation that you're putting all of this pressure on yourself to go against nature, it'll take you down. And that's what happened to me. So for me, it was mostly the patience and that relationship. So, I mean, I guess I'll get a little snarky here. I used to...
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dance Friends, another episode, another session with the two lovely gentlemen, Dr. Milad and Masood, and we have the one and only Dr. Laura Brenner. And today is a special episode because we are celebrating Dr. Laura Brenner's giving back the keys to her last practice, you said, last week. So it's a special day for all of us. Especially Dr. Brenner. Is this the first podcast you're doing after you gave back the keys, Dr.
Well,
Brenner?
no. So this is, I call it my rebirth day. My rebirth day, because in 2011, on the Thursday before Thanksgiving, I handed in my last dental key. So it's been 14 years. And 8 years later, on the Thursday before Thanksgiving, I finished my very last, this is a lot of information, but I finished my very last chemotherapy treatment for cancer. That was a big shock.
Congrats.
So
wow.
Crazy that on the Thursday before Thanksgiving, the two biggest life transformations I ever had happened. They ended. And so that's why I call it my rebirth day every year.
That's amazing, though.
But thanks for celebrating with me.
Great. Yes. Yeah. That's great. We're so happy to be part of it.
It's a special anniversary. So, Dr. Brenner, why don't we start with a little bit about you, your past experience? You just mentioned before we start the podcast that you've been more out than in as a practitioner. So if you can tell us a little bit about your journey, why did you decide to stop practicing and how's it been really so far?
So I liked dental school. It was pretty cool. A lot of us like being students and we're used to that and comfortable with that and we're good at that. And I couldn't wait to get out into the real world because I wasn't going to have to do some of those silly things that we had to do, like getting every single thing checked. And I couldn't wait to have that autonomy. And I got out into the real world and I was like, this is hard. Wow, this is like really, really hard. I didn't expect it to be this hard, although I kind of knew it would be. And I had enough grit that I said, all right, I'm going to just work through these early years. I'm going to push through it because this is hard and I have to learn. And this is part of being successful in the world. And 3 years in, it didn't get any easier. I mean, some things did get easier, but I still felt really unhappy. The first 3 years when you're unhappy, you're like, I'm new at this. This is the hardest job in the world. That's normal. But as you start to get better at things and it still feels that same kind of hard, for me, I lost hope because I thought this is going to be the time. And then, of course, I gave myself 2 more years. Oh, when I hit 5 years, then it's going to be easy. And yeah, it got easier and better, but I still felt horrible. And then finally, I had to kind of face the music that wasn't the right career for me. And my husband basically said to me, sort it out. You can't come home crying every day from work. You can't wake up at 2 a.m. every night. If you don't sort it out, our marriage is not going to last. I don't care what you have to do it because we can sell our house. You need to figure out a way to be happy in life. And I always joke that the ultimatum was really permission. So ultimately I had to kind of begin the path and figure out, all right, what am I going to be? What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Because this isn't working for me.
And from your experience, which portion of it, if you don't mind going in a little bit more details, which portion of doing dentistry and practicing as a dentist was tiring you off most?
I think for me, it was, and by the way, I'm a pretty open book, as you probably know from my telling you about my rebirth day. So for me, it was the relationship with patients. And I went into dentistry because I really liked people, but I found that I guess I didn't know myself as much as I thought I did. And I was a big people pleaser. And that what I find is that people who are more burnt out or unhappier with dentistry, we are people pleasers and we want to do anything to make our patients win, to make our team happy, and we will sacrifice ourselves for it. And it just takes such a huge toll. So I just always felt like it was the world, the weight of the world on my shoulders to be the hero for everyone and fix everyone and make it perfect for them. And dentistry isn't like that. It's not a textbook. It's so variable and nature is unpredictable. And so when you have that expectation that you're putting all of this pressure on yourself to go against nature, it'll take you down. And that's what happened to me. So for me, it was mostly the patience and that relationship. So, I mean, I guess I'll get a little snarky here. I used to say that I hate patients, but I love people. So it's not really that I hated the patients. I mean, kind of, maybe a little bit, but I liked them as people. It's just the dynamic of that relationship was really painful for me. And I couldn't ever really figure out a way to lift that burden for myself. Now I understand it a lot more, but it was very challenging. And I didn't have the resources or the support at the time to really be able to work through that.
That makes sense. What is your relationship like, Dr. Milad, now that we have two dentists? How do you approach your patients, and do you put yourself like ahead of your patients, or do you put patients ahead of you, or you just don't care about your patients at all? You just pull out the teeth and get done with it.
No, I mean, I get where the doctor is coming from. And I think that's the hardest part. As a dentist, you want to solve everything and you want to do everything. When I came out of dental school, that was my mentality. Oh, I got to save every single tooth. But now I got to a point where I'm like, it is what it is. If you can't do something, you just say no to it and you move on. I mean, if I have to do everything and save everything, it just becomes really hard because, like the doctor mentioned, it's just the nature of dentistry in general is changing. I believe it's shifting a lot. And now with the Google review and everything, now you got to make sure everybody's pleased. The pressure is still there, but I think we might now have more than ever have more options for the patients when it comes to their treatment and doing things differently. Doc, the question I want to ask you is, so you mentioned some, because the one thing you brought up that was so fascinating to me, and I have had this conversation, when I had a mentor before I got into dental school, he said, Milad, if you're not a people person, don't go into dentistry. And you mentioned something. You said, well, I got into dental school because I like to do dentistry. You had some passion for it. But, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast. So what is your, if you had to go back to the moment where you decide to go to dental school, what would you tell yourself if you know what you know today? What would you do differently? Because I think it's important for this younger doctors, pre-dental students, dental students to really know what is the reality of the other side of dentistry is before they want to go get into it. What would you do differently if you had to go back in time?
I think I would give myself a break and really look at developing myself inside, like who am I, and teaching myself that I am good enough that I don't need to be the hero to fix everyone. And that actually, so it would be a whole rewiring of the way I see the world. And I would teach myself that, when we try to control other people's experiences and make it perfect for them, we're actually robbing them of the autonomy of being a person who can take care of themselves. And when we think we need to take that all on, it's not healthy for us. And it's just a different way of thinking about it. So it would be about relieving the pressure. And I don't know, Dr. Milad, if you remember this. Well, or maybe they didn't. Well, you're closer to dental school, so you should, if they taught you this at dental school. But do you remember the saying they always said to us, once you touch a tooth, you own it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right? And I get what they're saying. It's a great message and it's a great teaching because it's basically they're saying choose your cases wisely so you can protect yourself. For some of us, it's like, I own everything. That's how we interpret it. And that is it's soul crushing because you're creating this unrealistic expectation for yourself. So I think it would be to just like chill out, honey, relax a little. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. And actually, you know what? When I became a patient, as I mentioned, with my cancer years later, I remember one day going into my oncologist and I felt awful. Like chemo made me so sick. And it was my second round of it out of 6. And I remember I sat there with him and I was just complaining and crying. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I feel so sick and awful. And he just sat there and validated me and showed me care and compassion. And this light bulb went off where I was like, wow, as the patient who's really suffering, all I expect from him and want from him is that compassion and validation. And that's what he gave me. And if I were still practicing again, I would tell myself that I don't have to fix everything. I don't have to be perfect. If I can just be compassionate and caring and validate what my patients are experiencing and not take all of it on my shoulders and not take all of it personally, then for the most part, that's all I need to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. The one thing that is when we have these conversations is fascinating to me. Well, not really fascinating, but what really blows my mind is that the dental schools don't talk about these kind of things. The dental school don't educate the dental students to say, "Hey, this is what you need to do and this is how you need to do it." Why do you think the dental schools are so behind with the mental health part of it? Because the burnout has become such a huge topic everyone talking about dentists and the burnout. Well, why do you believe that dental schools are not preparing these dental students and saying, hey, this is the reality of our business or our dentistry, and this is the path for you to solve it? Why do you think they're not teaching students that part of dentistry?
My guess is red tape, right? And time. There's so much. Well, wouldn't it be great if we could just not have to learn histology that we never use and instead work on our mental?
Uh,
So I think there's some red tape and some standards, and these are old institutions and it's really hard to create change. And so all of the change makers were saying, I'm going to create my own educational program that's outside of dental school. And thank God we have that, right? So I think it's red tape, these old institutions, that it's hard to affect change, and time. There's so much to learn. There's so much to practice that they probably just don't have time to do it. But it is so important. I talk to dental students a lot. I just actually spoke with a dental student from Vietnam yesterday, and she was like, I am in so much pain doing this, but I don't feel like I have the choice to leave or not. And so there's 2 things there. It's one, if leaving for her is the right decision, then she should be able to do that. But also maybe there's other support that she could get that would make her better. Like, I know as a dentist, if I could have had a little more compassion for myself because they taught that in dental school, maybe I would have lasted longer.
Doctor, you mentioned that you got into dentistry right off the bat early on because you loved people. And then you got into dentistry at the same time you loved people, but you didn't love that kind of interaction that you had with patients, that you were putting yourself ahead of them. But my question is, there are a lot of different jobs out there that you can interact with people. Why like dentistry? What's the story behind it that you
Oh,
got
I
into
love that.
dental?
I love that question. Are you asking me why that relationship in dentistry didn't work, or why did I choose that dentistry for that?
So why not get the answer for both? Actually, my question was about how did you get into dentistry? Like what made you decide to become a dentist? But yeah, let's get the answer to both of
Okay,
the questions.
yeah. I love it. So for me, it was, we're taught that it's going to give us this great life because we're going to help people and we're going to have a really good, stable living. And there's a lot of demand for dentistry, and you never have to worry about being jobless or homeless. And so it's very practical, but it's also really noble, and you get respect. And when you tell people you want to be a dentist, everybody's excited for you. And it's how we, I think, receive being approved of and love. And so a lot of that. Now, personally, I did have braces. And when I got my braces off, wasn't very happy. The first day I got them on, I said my first F-bomb ever in my life in front of my mother. So the first time I said in front of my mother, and she looked at me like, what? That's how unhappy I was at 14. But when I got my braces off, I was like, this is amazing. I want to help create smiles. And that's true for me. I like smiling. I like laughing. And so that was my why. All those things were part of my why. And then it really is the dynamic that made me say, because we are responsible for the work we do. There's that push pull of, I could say I'm just doing the work and I'm not responsible for it, but we're doing the work in someone's mouth. So, I transitioned into weight loss coaching for a while, and I still could guide and coach my clients, just like as dentists, we coach our patients and teach them, but I didn't have to touch them. So if they chose to create success for themselves, amazing, I could celebrate with them. But if they chose to not do the work, I didn't have to own it. And it's still a little hard in dentistry to separate that. So I wish there were a better way. And some of us find a way by creating great coping skills. So hopefully that answered both questions.
No, it definitely does. And if you saw someone, so now this gets more into, because you coach dentists right now about how to build a better practice, how to be better dentists. If someone had the exact same problems with the exact same personalities, let's say you have a twin. Do you have a twin? Twin sister,
Maybe out there
brother?
somewhere.
Maybe out there somewhere. Yeah. Let's suppose that there's a twin out there that is you, exactly you, and is going through the exact same problems. Now, how would you do it differently to make it really work out?
Yeah, I really like that question because the work I do now has taught me that, a lot of us will say, this is my personality, so dentistry isn't good for me. And I would say, yeah, that may be a factor. It is partly our personality, but it's also our attitude. So, by the way, I wanted to tell you this, Masood, is that I take full responsibility for the way I saw those patient relationships. That was all me. And as much as I wanted to change that, I tried. At the time, it was just the way I was. Since leaving dentistry, I've been able to change the way I show up in relationships. So I give people much more autonomy. I don't feel nearly as much like I need to protect them or shape shift myself to fit into their world. I allow myself to be me a lot more now, and it's taken a lot of learning, but it's proven to me that we can change. This is an attitudinal thing. And I actually use an assessment with people that shows them how they see the world. And over, the people that are more burnt out have the same patterns that were similar to mine. And the people who don't, it's not that they don't care. It's that they see the world, for example, with more opportunities. They're looking for the win-win. They're not going to beat themselves up the way I would. So I believe that we can change this but it's such an inside job. It has to come from inside.
The one thing I want to know is, I mean, I've been through the process of like, going, taking the DAT, getting into dental school. So I know that process is a very lengthy process. And I know getting into dental school is a challenge, getting out is a challenge. So I mean, I can understand all that. But the one thing is, I'm just asking myself, I'm like, if it comes time for me to one day say, man, like I'm gonna just, give the kids somebody else and walk away from dentistry, that had to be a hard decision for you. And I really want to know, like, what was that moment that you said, okay, I am truly done with this? Because I'm sure you thought about those times, the studyings you done, the times that you put in. So what was that moment for you that you just said, okay, like I'm just really truly done with dentistry? Like what was that turning point for you? Because I know it's not easy. You had to be, I'm sure you had gave it a lot of thinking before you decide that. But what was the turning point for you that you really conquered the decision of walking away?
Yeah, it was not easy, you're right. And honestly, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, even having stage 3 cancer. Like cancer was the worst thing I've had to do, but leaving dentistry was the hardest because I had a choice. I didn't have a choice with this other thing. But like when you have a choice and you need to make it to keep yourself alive because you're so miserable and depressed, then you don't have to make that choice. So you have to really dig deep and do it because we're tough as dentists. We are the toughest people out there. We will grind our way through. We will shove all of our feelings down. We will keep going. And so I think the moment wasn't really one moment, but it was this realization of I don't think I can physically, literally do this anymore. I'm just so miserable. Like every day going in, and there were times when I was doing a hygiene check, looking at teeth, and in my head, imagining myself shaking my head and being like, I can't look at another tooth right now, So misery, like sometimes pain is our greatest helper because it drives us to change. And if I weren't in pain, I would have kept going. And I wish I loved dentistry. Like dentistry is a great profession. I'm so lucky and I'm so glad I get to still be in it my way and be myself and on my terms because that was just not healthy for me. So it was really like desperation and pain and saying, you know what? It's either going to be me or dentistry that goes, and it's not going to be me.
Yeah, that's
That's
super
great.
fascinating. That's an amazing thing. The one thing that, like you mentioned, there are moments in life that, change the way we do things. It changes our perspective, the way we look at life. I talked to Masters probably about this. I lost my sister to cancer many, many years back. So that was kind of like a life-changing moment for our family because she was our older sister. But I want to know the experience that, when you went through that moment, how has your perspective to life has changed? Because I know probably going through the treatment, going through all that, going through that, you probably had a different perspective before. And what was your perspective after that? Because I believe that you go through some changes as you're going through that treatment. So how are you looking at life when you were done with your cancer? How are you looking at life differently?
Yeah. And as you know, it changes you and everyone who's close to you.
Absolutely.
So, what was interesting is there was, on the one hand, such a gratitude that I chose to live my life the way I wanted to before I needed cancer to show me that. There was, for me, something that was like, at least I am living. So there was that. But that was like a tiny part of it because the rest of it is just misery and fear. And it is devastating it's just the most devastating thing. And the reason I call today my rebirth day, I should say, is that a part of my identity died both times. So when I had to leave dentistry, quit dentistry, I had to let go of that identity because we don't know who we are without this so often. And the truth is that your work isn't who you are, but we define ourselves through that. So that was like the first death of one of my very major identities. When I got cancer, it was like, this isn't supposed to happen to me. I'm the healthy one. I do everything right. So there was this lot of beliefs that went with that too, that it was like, I'm the healthy one. And so the healthy one died. So I use reborn and rebirth like in a very playful way. So I had to rebirth myself and figure out who am I going to be. And I still attach myself to identities. Like now my identity is I'm the dentist that quit dentistry, right? But the more we can be free of these identities that help us or create a scenario where we put our worth on what we do or things that aren't really that important, like being the healthy one was just a mask. So, yeah, I still like to be healthy and I try to take care of myself. But when you go into that darkness, if you do take care of yourself mentally and emotionally, you can emerge from it stronger. You can do hard things. You have this sense of gratitude that you would never know if you didn't experience that really bad time, because you get to compare the your everyday best to this horrible time. And you know what? Now I've got street cred. I'm like, all right, if you think I've had an easy life, I've got street cred now. So just needing also saying like, I'm going to cheer myself on and say to myself like, wow, you really are strong. Like can I say this? You're a badass.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah. And so it helped me with that. And you know what else? I learned that the people in my life really did love me because they all showed up for me, even if it was this tiny Facebook message. And all that stuff is what really matters. And it's what's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So, Doc, we're at the close to the 28th minute. Usually at the 25-minute mark of our podcast, we ask our guests to tell us the best joke that they've heard along their career. So, you're on.
Does it have to be like a dad joke kind of joke?
It could be whatever. Like we're pretty much open, and
Could it-
all of our audience are, I'm sure, they're 18 plus, so you can say whatever.
I knew you guys were going to put me on the spot for something. So I'm going to say, all right, this is the only joke I can remember. This was one that my mother used to tell me when I was younger. Well, it's just ironic. So the joke was back in the day when George W. Bush was president. So I'm going to keep it timely for that. So she said, George Bush walks into a nursing home and he asks one of the residents there sitting in a wheelchair, hey, do you know who I am? And the guy's like, yeah, you're President Bush. And he's like, okay, great. And he goes up to the next guy and he's like, do you know who I am? And he's like, yeah, you're the president. And he goes up to the next one and he's like, do you know who I am? And he's like, no, but if you go to the front desk, they'll tell you.
That was good.
Joke teller, guys.
We should probably say that about Trump now.
Yeah. Well,
it would make more sense.
Trying to stay neutral in every way. Actually, I don't do neutral, but
Hey, Masood, you want to get us kicked out, man?
I'm already kicked out, Doc. You're the one in. I'm in Canada. It's free speech here.
Well, we have free speech to a point. I don't know what happened to it. But Doc, the one thing I wanted to ask you, because what are, and that's even for me to know, like, what are some of the, because like I mentioned, they don't really teach us, what to look for when you're getting to that moment where you're like, all right, like I'm heading the fence, I'm getting burned out, I'm mentally not all there. What are some of the early signs a younger dentist should really look for when they're getting to that point where, okay, the burnout is coming, the mental health is not there, I'm not living a healthy life? Like, what are some of the things they need to look for? Because obviously you went through the experience, you know how that was. I just want to know, like, what are some of the things they should look for? Because I don't know, maybe I'm hitting my burnout.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, but it's a really important question. And for me, the way I see it, so many of us, we do grind our way through things and we're achievers and we're strong, that it's hard for us to see the early signs. So in my experience, I love what I do now and I still burn myself out. And it's not until I'm irritable. So like some of the things to look out for are being irritable. Maybe going into the office in the morning and just feeling like you don't have the energy to start your day. So I used to go in the office and my team would be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, don't talk to me. But the minute I would walk into the patient room, I'd be like, hi. And it would make me feel better it would naturally lift my energy, but I didn't feel like I had the energy to start my day. So it's a lack of energy. It's irritability. It's being annoyed. The biggest, and this, I don't know if this would be an early sign or there are 3 signs that I think are really important. One is that compassion fatigue. So when you stop seeing your patients as opportunities to create solutions and you start seeing them as burdens and being annoyed by their problems, that's pretty bad. Also feeling like you don't have impact. So I used to feel so much pain that I couldn't see the wins that I was creating for people. And with that would be kind of like losing perspective of what you do and becoming disillusioned by the work and feeling like there's no way that you can win. I think to me, those 3 are the big ones, but the other smaller ones are that irritability. And I mean, I can't say this for you guys, but I would cry about stupid things and
Well, Doc, the irritability is probably there because every time I get there in the morning, they're like, Dr. Owji came in. He's a grumpy old man. He probably hasn't had his coffee. I'm like, guys, give me some time. I'll come around.
You know what you need to do? Just have one of them hand you the coffee when you walk right in the door.
Actually, it's so funny, Doc. So my hygienist, she assigned herself. She's like, my morning duty, make coffee for Dr. Owji.
Doctor, do you want to talk about that schedule that you have for the girls in the office? The one you told me once?
No.
Okay, never mind.
We don't want to talk about that. But no, Doc, I mean, I can relate because there are days that I go in and there has been a few times where I feel, I come home and I have lack so much energy. And then I sleep so much and I wake up and I'm like, man, I'm still tired. What is going on? Like there are days that I get there that I'm like, man, I slept probably 14 hours and I'm getting up in the morning and I'm still tired. Like my body just I don't know what it is, but I was even telling my brother the other day, I was like, man, I feel like I'm sick or something. Like my body is like not all there. But I feel like I can definitely feel that. Like it's getting to that point where I'm like, I need to step away from the chair. I need to just recoup my mind. And I need to because like you said, like even the other day, small, not even anything important, like it just irritated me because I react so quickly that I can relate to that I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably like I'm getting some sort of burnout of some sort that is causing me to get there because, yeah, everybody have their past PTSD that they deal with, but I'm like, you can't. But, the feeling is so valid at the moment that you react so quickly that I'm like, it can't be that. So yeah, I may have to join your boy soon, Doc.
Well, just take care of yourself. And when you notice that, that's when you need to get support from your team and not have to do everything yourself. And that's when you need to take breaks and exercise and make sure you sleep. And gosh, I mean, I have that now, but my version is sitting in front of the computer and I will literally I'll get to the point where I'm like, I can't focus anymore. And that's my sign to be like, stop like pushing and like we push ourselves through it. And if we can take a break, maybe you go out for a little walk for 5 minutes.
Well, Doc, the final question I want to ask you, have you really truly missed dentistry? Have you you woke up, you're like, man, I want to do a crown prep today?
Love that question. Also so many people ask that question too, or they're afraid. They are miserable, but they're afraid that they're going to regret leaving dentistry. And I will tell you, not one day in my life have I missed the actual way the work makes me feel. Not one day have I regretted it. Because here's the thing is the stuff I liked about dentistry, which is ironic because I said I hate patients and I like to joke about that, but is connecting with my patients. That was the part I liked when it went well. So the stuff I liked, teaching patients, coaching with them, connecting with people, the work as a dentist is the vehicle that allows me to connect with people. So if I like that and I choose new work, I'm still getting to connect with people, but now it's more on my terms. So oftentimes the gifts that we're sharing, dentistry is just the vehicle. And so if it's creating pain for you, you can find a new vehicle that still allows you to do the things that you like. So for me, I love to share with people. For me, the right decision was to leave. I've never one day of my life regretted it. And it was hard. Do I wish I loved it? Yes. But it's worth choosing the life you want over having to live the wrong life.
That's an amazing and a powerful message. So if before we let you go, Doc, so what is, in one word or a sentence or whatever, what is one advice you can give the dentists, the recent graduate, the dentists that are out practicing, like what is one advice you can give them to really help them understand where they're at in their career and what they need to do to either make it better or to really figure out what the next step is going to be, which is exit dentistry and do something else?
Invest in yourself. We're always taught to do more CE, which is great. I think investing in CE is investing in yourself, because if you can get better at the procedures, it's going to make you more confident and capable. So that's great. I love the saying how buying a practice is a piece of advice that we share with people, but it's not right for everyone. But if you invest in yourself and know who you are and know what you want and know what's important to you and start listening to yourself, then you can make those decisions that are right for yourself. And then you can see your world through a more empowered perspective than instead of being a victim like I was. We didn't have this. I didn't know how to do this. I worked with a coach. She knew nothing about dentistry at the time. But the minute people start investing in themselves as humans, that's when, this is why so many people, I get this a lot from people that when they're thinking of like, what else could I do? And they're like, everyone's becoming a coach in dentistry. And I'm like, that's because they get coaching and it changes their lives. And so they want to do it too. So you don't have to choose it as your next profession. It might help you stay in dentistry, but until you do the inner work to look at your attitude and how you see the world and how you can be the best you want to be. But I should rephrase that. When you start doing that, everything else follows and gets a lot easier.
Well, Doc, that's the best you could
Beautiful.
have said it. Beautiful advice. Yeah. Doc, I truly want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I really, truly enjoyed this conversation because I think these are the type of conversation. I mean, I always say this, the reason we started this podcast was because of this type of conversation, because I believe that this type of conversation can help and change somebody's trajectory of their decision making in their life. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you for what you're doing for dentistry. I know that your story, it's going to be impactful. I mean, definitely the things that you have gone through, they're motivational. So I'm super grateful for your time. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you both so much for hosting me. This was a really fun time for me too. And keep doing this because you're great at it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you. It's all for you.
Doc, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.